You know what they say, success makes you friends, but failure shows you who's really there for you. My name's Natalie Quinn. I live just outside Austin, Texas, and up until a few months ago, I thought I had everything figured out. I ran a boutique interior design firm called Nest and Nova, had a great apartment near South Congress, and a solid circle of people I trusted. Or thought I trusted. This story isn't about heartbreak in the romantic sense. No, it's about something colder. Something calculated. It's about watching someone you considered family slowly peel off their mask and realizing that maybe they were never really on your side to begin with. That someone was Jordan Hale. Jordan and I met 5 years ago when I redesigned his sister's home office. He was charming, driven, kind of cocky, but not in a way that screamed trouble, not right away. Over the years, we became close. He invested in my business when I was scaling. I let him. I thought having a friend on board would be easier than bringing in some faceless angel investor. We grabbed coffee every week, shared strategy ideas. He even helped me negotiate a few vendor contracts. Everyone assumed we were a couple we weren't. It was strictly business, with a dose of trust that in hindsight, I gave too freely. Things started to shift when I landed a massive commercial project last fall, a rebrand and redesign of a luxury spa chain expanding into 5 cities. It was the kind of contract that could put Nest and Nova on the national map. That's when Jordan changed. At first, it was subtle. He questioned every decision I made under the guise of concern. He started offering suggestions that weren't just off, they would have sabotaged our budget and deadlines if I had followed them. Then came the little digs. Do you think you're growing too fast, Nat? This kind of scale might be more than you're ready for. You're lucky I'm here to keep things realistic. Lucky. He kept using that word. By the end of December, I noticed he was talking to our suppliers behind my back. He'd check in on our financials, even though I hadn't asked him to. One of our interns accidentally forwarded me an email Jordan had sent out, questioning whether I was mentally prepared to lead a multi-million-dollar operation. That was the moment I stopped doubting my gut. But I didn't confront him. Not yet. Instead, I decided I was going to test him. See, when someone wants power, when they're just waiting for the moment you slip, they don't always try to push you off the ledge. Sometimes, they wait for you to stumble, then claim your place before you even hit the ground. So I gave him the stumble. I faked a breakdown. Financial, emotional, professional. I told him our investor had pulled out, that we lost the Dallas contract, that I was scared I'd have to downsize and maybe even dissolve the company. I crafted the narrative carefully, just enough detail to be believable, just enough silence to feel real. And Jordan? He took the bait. Faster than I expected. The concern disappeared overnight, replaced by meetings he took without me, ideas he pitched behind my back, and one chilling sentence he said to a mutual contact that eventually found its way back to me. Natalie's not coming back from this. Might as well let someone who can handle pressure take over. That was all I needed to hear. The man I trusted, the one who called himself a partner, had been waiting for his moment to strike. But what he didn't know, this entire collapse, every meeting, every breakdown, every canceled check and nervous phone call, it was all part of my plan. You can't just fake a failure. Not if you want people to believe it. If there's one thing running a design firm taught me, it's that the details matter. Mismatched screws, crooked tiling, those are what kill credibility. And in this case, credibility was everything. I started with small things. I stopped responding to certain client emails for a few days, intentionally delaying responses to make it seem like I was overwhelmed. Then I accidentally double-booked 2 vendor calls, letting them clash without rescheduling. My assistant, Kaya, who was completely in on the plan, would mention to anyone who asked that I'd been a little off lately. And Jordan? Oh, he lapped it up. He started texting Kaya directly instead of going through me, gently nudging himself into operations he had no business managing. I even heard from our accountant, who said Jordan had inquired, casually of course, about what would happen if I couldn't continue running things. That's when I knew the clock had started ticking. I created fake documents, financial statements that showed sudden losses and cash flow problems. I had a friend of mine who works in finance help make them look authentic. Then I left them open by mistake on the office printer, knowing full well Jordan couldn't resist peeking. That afternoon, I walked into the break room and found him holding one of the printouts, eyes scanning the page like he'd just found buried treasure. He looked up at me, his expression shifting instantly into a mask of concern. "Natalie, is everything okay?" I gave a shaky sigh and sat down with a carefully timed pause. "I'm not sure. I think I may have gotten in over my head." He didn't say anything right away, just gave me that performative nod and patted my shoulder. And then he started asking questions. Not helpful ones like, "How can I support you?" or "What's our strategy?" No. These were the kinds of questions you ask when you're mentally measuring the size of the throne you're planning to steal. "Have you considered stepping back temporarily? Do you think it's time we bring someone in to help steer the ship?" I could almost see the gears turning in his head. He thought I was crumbling, and he was loving it. Next, I started slowly leaking the news to our extended network through people I knew would talk. I pulled out of a speaking gig at a design summit in Santa Fe, claiming I was dealing with personal setbacks. I declined a feature in a local magazine. I even went so far as to post a vague story on Instagram, just white text on a black background. Sometimes things fall apart faster than you can fix them. Cue the flood of concerned DMs. But most importantly, cue Jordan. 2 days later, he called a casual meeting with one of our biggest vendors without inviting me. He claimed it was just a status check. But when I had Kaya listen in on the call, what she overheard was jaw-dropping. He told them, "Natalie's going through some things. If things continue spiraling, we may need to renegotiate under new leadership." New leadership. I remember standing in my office when Kaya told me that, just gripping the edge of my desk. My hands were shaking not from fear, but from clarity. He really thought I was done. He had no idea this was all scripted. He was overconfident, sloppy, careless. And that's when I knew it was time to start recording. Because it wasn't enough to know the truth. I needed proof, undeniable, irrefutable proof, of who Jordan really was. And I had just the plan to make it happen. I wish I could say Jordan's betrayal came out of nowhere, that I was blindsided. But the truth? I think a part of me had always known. I just didn't want to believe it. After the vendor meeting Kaya overheard, I started digging. Carefully, quietly. I wanted to know, how far back did this go? Was Jordan just taking advantage of the moment, or had he been laying the groundwork for this takeover for months? The answer was worse than I imagined. It started with a folder buried in our shared cloud storage, something I only found because he hadn't cleared his auto-sync settings. It was labeled Contingency, Transition. Inside? Spreadsheets, proposal drafts, even a transition timeline titled Q2 Leadership Shift, if Natalie withdraws. Let me repeat that, if Natalie withdraws. Not if Natalie asks for help, or if Natalie needs time off. No. It was written as if he was waiting for me to collapse and already had a plan to take everything. There was a pitch deck he had prepared, using our branding, my design style, my client work. Just, without me. He'd even added himself as managing director. That's when it clicked. He never wanted to help grow Nest and Nova. He wanted to own it. All of it. And the signs were there. In hindsight, so obvious. Like when he casually suggested I register the company under a joint LLC for tax purposes. I said no, but now I realize. He was trying to wedge his name deeper into the foundation. Or that time he offered to take over comms during a client conflict and somehow made it worse. I thought it was clumsy. Now I know it was deliberate. He wasn't just waiting for me to fall. He'd been chipping away at me, little by little, hoping I wouldn't notice until it was too late. But here's where it gets interesting. In one of the folders, I found a calendar invite sent from his email, but not to me. It was a meeting scheduled with one of my rival design firms in Houston, someone I'd lost a bid to the year before. The subject line? Next phase expansion collaboration opportunity. I called my contact there and casually asked about it, pretending I had seen the invite by mistake. She laughed and said, "Oh, Jordan told us you were planning to dissolve Nest and Nova and pivot to something else." We assumed the transition was mutual. My blood ran cold. He was already talking like I was gone. Like I was some burned-out founder who just couldn't cut it. All while smiling at me in the office kitchen, bringing me coffee, asking, "How are you holding up?" It was chilling, but also oddly clarifying. Because now, I wasn't just setting a trap for someone who might betray me. I was documenting a takeover attempt in real time. I started screen recording every shared document update. I had Kaya forwarding me every time Jordan tried to schedule something behind my back. And I bought a small, discreet mic, one that clipped under my blazer, because soon I planned to confront him in a place he'd never expect. But I wasn't ready yet. There was still one thing I needed to see for myself. Would he try to go behind my back and take a client directly? That's how I would know without a doubt that this wasn't about concern or control. It was calculated theft. So I baited him again. I scheduled a fake call with a potential new client, a luxury boutique hotel in Scottsdale, and made sure Jordan overheard me talking about the deal while standing outside our shared office wall. The very next day, that same client emailed me. "Hi Natalie, we're a bit confused. Someone named Jordan reached out and said he'd be handling the contract on behalf of Nest and Nova moving forward. Can you clarify?" That was the last straw. Now I had motive, I had documentation, and I had witnesses. And it was time to show the world exactly who Jordan Hale really was. But first, I needed video. By this point, I knew what I had to do. I had the evidence on paper, the emails, the calendar invites. But I needed undeniable proof, something you couldn't spin, deny, or walk back. Something on camera. It had to be perfect. Jordan was too calculated for a sloppy setup. If I came at him with accusations, he'd either gaslight me or pretend to be shocked. He was too good at playing the victim, at twisting things to look like he was trying to help while I was being unstable. So I decided to give him a stage and let him bury himself. First, I planted the bait. We had a shared meeting space on the second floor of our office, a private consultation room with a long glass table, white walls, and one of those fake ficus plants in the corner. Barely anyone used it. It was soundproof and sleek. Perfect for private strategy calls. And most importantly, it had a wall shelf positioned just right for a discreet camera. I bought a tiny cam online. Motion sensitive. High resolution. Hooked it into the corner behind a stack of style magazines and a sample tile board. Totally invisible unless you were hunting for it. Then I got Kaya involved. I asked her to schedule a fake meeting between Jordan and a new investor we were supposedly courting. A guy named Rick Harmon who, in reality, was my cousin Jake, an actor who used to do community theater in Dallas, and had way too much fun saying lines like, "We're looking for confident leadership, not emotional instability." I made sure Jordan knew I'd be out of town that day for a mental health break, another layer in the illusion of my so-called breakdown. I even sent a mass email saying I'd be unavailable and unreachable for 48 hours. That morning, I waited in the parking lot across the street, watching the building entrance from behind my tinted windshield. Jordan showed up right on time, looking confident, sharp, completely unaware that his moment of reckoning had arrived. Inside, Jake, aka Rick, played his part flawlessly. He opened by asking about the company's trajectory, then gradually shifted the conversation. "We're just concerned about Natalie. With everything happening, do you believe she's still the right person to lead?" "And Jordan?" He didn't hesitate. "Honestly, no. She's spiraling. The company's lost direction under her." I've already begun outlining a restructuring plan that I can execute as interim director, once she steps aside, of course. He even pulled out a document. A proposal I had never seen before, listing himself as sole operating officer. I watched this entire thing later on the recording with a pit in my stomach. He was cool, casual, rehearsed. With your capital, he told Rick, I can turn Nest and Nova into the streamlined powerhouse it was meant to be. Natalie's a great creative, don't get me wrong, but some people aren't built to scale. I paused the recording there. Just stared at the frozen frame of him smirking like he'd won. This man didn't just want me out. He wanted to replace me, erase me, wear my success like it was his suit jacket. But now? I had him. Crystal clear audio. Full body language. Documents in hand. Every lie. Every manipulative little sentence. Captured. The trap had officially sprung. Now, it was time to go back inside that office and flip the script. But I wasn't going to confront him in private. No. Not after everything he did behind closed doors. Jordan Hale was going to face the truth in front of everyone. I walked into the office the next morning like nothing had happened. Hair tied back, neutral blazer, calm expression. Like a woman who'd just taken a weekend off to recover. Like a woman who wasn't carrying a USB stick filled with enough evidence to make Jordan choke on his oat milk latte. Kaya had already gathered the core team for a weekly sync in our main conference room. It was Tuesday. Jordan had no idea what was coming. I'll never forget the look on his face when I walked in. At first, surprise. Then confusion. Then something colder. Panic. I took my usual seat at the head of the table. Morning, everyone. I know I've been a little distant lately, and I appreciate you all keeping the wheels turning. Today, I want to address something important. Jordan shifted in his seat. Smiled like he wasn't sweating bullets. Natalie, he cut in, we can circle back to that. I actually had a few strategic items. I held up a hand. Actually, Jordan, I'd like to start. He froze. I smiled. Over the past few weeks, I've been pretending to go through a breakdown, financially, emotionally, professionally. It wasn't real. But your reaction? That was. You could have heard a pin drop. I turned to Kaya. She walked over and plugged the USB into the projector. And then, I pressed play. The room filled with the sound of Jordan's voice, his own voice, pitching himself as the next leader of Nest and Nova. Explaining how I was unfit, how he was already restructuring. Laying out his plan like he was talking about an app prototype. I didn't say a word. I let it play in full. Every last word. When it ended, I looked around at the team. Their faces said everything. Disbelief, betrayal, fury. This, I said, is the man who smiled at me every day and told me he had my back. Jordan started to stammer. This was taken out of context. I was trying to protect the company. I shook my head. You tried to steal it. Then I dropped the second bomb. I slid printed copies of the transition plan and the calendar invite to the Houston firm across the table. You were laying the groundwork for months. And if I hadn't caught you, I'd probably be standing in line for unemployment right now while you pitched my company to my competitors. Kaya stood next to me now. So did Rachel, our lead architect. Even James, who rarely spoke in meetings, crossed his arms and stared Jordan down. He had no allies left in the room. Jordan stood up, tried to salvage what he could. You've all misunderstood my intentions. I only stepped in when I saw things going off the rails. The only thing off the rails, Kaya cut in, was your ego. I'd never heard her sound so firm. Jordan blinked at her, then at me, and finally realized. There was no recovering from this. He grabbed his laptop and stormed out. No apology. No explanation. Just silence. After he left, I turned back to the room. You all deserve the truth. And now you have it. We sat there for a few quiet seconds. Then Rachel reached over and put her hand on mine. You handled that like a boss. It hit me then. Not just that I had saved my business, but that I had finally cleared the rot that had been growing under the surface for over a year. The hardest part was over. But I still had one thing left to do: make sure he never tried this again. After Jordan stormed out, part of me thought it was over. He was exposed, humiliated in front of the team, and the people who mattered knew the truth. But I couldn't shake this feeling. What if he tried to twist the story outside the office? Jordan was clever. Too clever. The kind of guy who'd spin a story before the dust even settled. I could already hear the version he'd post on LinkedIn. After a creative divergence at Nest and Nova, I've chosen to pursue independent consulting. Sometimes leadership requires hard conversations. No, that wasn't going to happen. So I decided to take control of the narrative publicly. The first thing I did was send a company-wide email to all our clients, partners, and vendors. Not dramatic, not angry, just clear and professional. To our valued clients and collaborators, over the last several weeks, we've undergone an internal review of leadership and operational integrity. As of today, Jordan Hale is no longer affiliated with Nest and Nova. We remain fully committed to transparency, accountability, and creative excellence. If you have any questions, my door is always open. Then came the big one: social media. I don't usually post much about business drama, but this was different. Our industry in Austin is small, and rumors spread like wildfire. I needed to make sure no one misunderstood why Jordan left. So I wrote a thread on X, formerly Twitter, and mirrored it on LinkedIn. How I faked my failure to expose a silent takeover attempt. 1. For months, I suspected someone close to me was trying to quietly remove me from the company I built from the ground up. 2. I pretended to break down emotionally, financially, just to see how he'd react. 3. What happened next confirmed everything. The thread detailed the basics without naming names. 7. I set a trap. He walked into it. We recorded everything. 8. He's now out of the company. The team is stronger than ever. 9. Moral of the story: if someone only stands beside you when you're shining, they'll bury you the second you dim. It went viral. People shared it, commented on it. Even a few other founders DM'd me with their own horror stories. This happened to me with a co-founder. Wish I had been as smart. You're the reason I'm reevaluating a few people on my team. Even better? One of the clients Jordan had secretly approached forwarded me the exact email he had sent, pitching himself as a solo consultant. I posted a redacted version of that too, just to make the point crystal clear. This was never about helping me. It was about replacing me. Jordan never responded publicly, but a week later his website went offline. A month later, I heard through mutuals he'd applied for a creative director position at a tech agency in Dallas. He didn't get it. Meanwhile, Nest and Nova landed 2 new contracts, people who said they came to us because they admired how we handled the situation. Revealing the truth didn't just protect my reputation. It restored it. And it reminded everyone that I wasn't just a creative, I was a leader. A leader who saw through the smiles and documented the dagger hiding behind them. But here's the thing. I never wanted revenge. What I wanted was clarity, honesty, peace. And once I got that, I could finally move forward. I wish I could say that was the end of it. That after everything came out, Jordan just disappeared into the background, quietly licking his wounds while I rebuilt the company he tried to hijack. But people like him? They rarely go quietly. It was about 3 weeks after the dust settled when I got his message. Not an email, not a call, a handwritten letter. Folded in thirds, no return address, left at the front desk of our office with my name scribbled across the envelope in thick, familiar strokes. I won't lie, my hands shook a little when I opened it. Not from fear, but from that old, burning why that still lingered like smoke. Here's what it said. Natalie, I never meant for things to go this far. I panicked. You were pulling away, the company felt unstable, and I thought maybe I was the one who could keep it together. I know how it looked, but I swear I wasn't trying to steal anything. I just wanted to prove I could lead too. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know. I'm sorry. Asterisk. No signature. No return address. Just, I'm sorry, like that could somehow unpoison the well. I sat with the letter for a full minute. Then I folded it back up and dropped it straight into the shredder. It was never about the apology. Because if he'd been sorry, he would have come to me before the lies. Before the secret proposals. Before the act of betrayal that nearly cost me everything. People like Jordan don't feel guilt. They feel regret, only when they lose. And that's what made this next part so satisfying. About a month later, I was invited to speak at a Women in Tech leadership panel in Dallas. Industry leaders, up-and-comers, press, everyone was there. I gave a talk called The Power of Seeing It Coming, and I told the entire story. I left out names, but the timeline and details made it obvious to anyone in our circle exactly who I meant. Afterward, during the networking mixer, a woman from a rival agency pulled me aside and said, "Jordan Hale applied for a position with us last week. We were on the fence. But after your talk? Not anymore." I just smiled and said, "Glad I could help." You see, I never needed revenge. All I had to do was let him show the world who he really was. And once he did, his fall was louder than anything I could have orchestrated. Now, Nest and Nova is thriving. We've expanded into 2 more cities. Kaya got promoted. Our new leadership board is stronger than ever and loyal. Truly loyal. As for me, I'm building something I believe in again. Without fear. Without sabotage. Without someone smiling at me while holding a knife behind their back. If there's one thing I learned from all this, it's this. Sometimes you have to fake the fall to see who celebrates it. And once you do, you'll never question who belongs in your corner again.